Welcome to Doctorates of the Absurd.
Our subject for today's deep dive is a text that claims to be a commentary.
But it functions really as a kind of summoning.
A summoning, yes,
Yes.
or perhaps an exorcism. It's hard to tell which.
The artifact, as it were, is a PDF, not a book, a file. Capital versus Timenergy 01.pdf.
And our mission here is to dissect it, to understand its internal logic.
My role here is interrogator. I want to strip away the author's self-presentation, this mask of the working-class philosopher, and find the pathology underneath.
And I'll be looking at the structure. This is a battlefield of ideas. On one side, you have the totalizing truth of Hegel, represented in the text by a figure like Žižek.
And on the other?
On the other, the nomadic flows of Deleuze, chaos, represented by a much darker figure, Land.
So let's begin with the thesis, the identity of the source. Who wrote this, and what do they claim to be?
Well, the author presents himself very specifically. He's an autodidact, a warehouse worker at a distribution center.
Someone who supposedly taught himself high-level philosophy between shifts, packing boxes.
Right. And he calls himself a leftist without a left. And a time-energy reductionist.
Okay, time-energy reductionist is a phrase we're going to have to circle back to. But this identity, this unpolished worker philosopher, is it an authentic position or is it a rhetorical strategy?
I think it's both. He's keenly aware of how he's positioning himself against the university machine, as he calls it.
The university machine, academia.
Exactly. And he has this fantastic metaphor to explain what this text is. He calls it the shirt before the shirt.
The shirt before the shirt? What on earth does that mean?
He actually borrows it from a very unlikely source.
Don't tell me it's some obscure German idealist.
No, it's Mike the Situation, Sorrentino.
From Jersey Shore.
From Jersey Shore.
You're joking.
I'm not. The idea, as the author explains it, is that the Situation would wear a simple tank top of beater around the house while getting ready.
Okay.
That was the shirt before the shirt. It was the raw, unpolished, preparatory stage. Then he'd put on the nice polished shirt to go out to the club.
So this PDF, this text we're analyzing, is the tank top.
It's the tank top. It's the draft. It's the thinking in process. He's explicitly rejecting the polished, finished, nice shirt that academia demands.
He sees the academic paper as a kind of corpse, a static object.
Precisely. In Deleuzian terms, the university produces sedentary knowledge. It's fixed, it's hierarchical, it doesn't move.
And he wants his text to be
Nomadic.
Yeah.
A war machine. Something written in coffee shops, between shifts that can move fast and break things. It's a becoming, not a being. It refuses to be a static object for critique. It's alive.
Which is a clever way to preempt criticism, isn't it? You can't judge this, it's not finished.
It is. But it's also, I think, an honest reflection of the conditions of its production. This isn't knowledge created in an ivory tower with a grant and a sabbatical. This is thought forged in exhaustion.
Let's talk about that exhaustion and this label he gives himself, a burnout Marxist. It seems like a paradox. If you're a Marxist, you believe in the power of the proletariat, in organized struggle. But burnout implies hopelessness.
It's a deep contradiction, and I think it's the core of the text's emotional energy. He still holds the Marxist toolkit. He analyzes class, capital, alienation.
But he's lost faith in the agent of change, the left.
He says the left is impotent.
Yeah.
A fandom. He argues that, as a political force capable of actually challenging capital, it's non-existent.
So why even hold on to the label? Why call yourself a leftist if there is no left?
Because it's an identity of lack. He is defined by the absence of the thing he needs. It creates this immense dialectical tension that powers the whole project.
He's holding on to the Enlightenment ideals, reason, freedom, emancipation.
Yes, but he simultaneously acknowledges that the only effective problem solver on the planet right now, the only force that actually gets things done, is capital.
Even if the problems it solves lead to our extinction.
Especially then. Capital doesn't care about our survival. It cares about its own reproduction. And that's the horrifying truth he thinks the mainstream left refuses to face.
So because the left is absent, he has to look elsewhere for an honest diagnosis of the enemy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he doesn't look for a hero. He goes straight to the villain's lair.
The subject of obsession.
Lemur King.
The text is, frankly, obsessed with the philosopher Land. I mean, it's dripping with this weird mixture of horror and admiration.
It is.
So for our listeners, who is Land? And why would a self-described working-class Marxist be so utterly captivated by a philosopher who, for all intents and purposes, advocates for the extinction of humanity?
That's the million-dollar question. Land is. He's the great taboo of contemporary theory. He was a professor at Warwick University in the 90s, the leading figure of the Cybernetic Culture Research Unit, or CCRU.
And they were, what?
They were a collective of thinkers, artists, DJs who were trying to fuse French post-structuralism with cyberpunk, jungle music, and occultism.
That sounds like a 90s fever dream.
It was. And Land was the dark heart of it. He took the ideas of Deleuze, the rhizome, flows, deterritorialization, and he pushed them to a conclusion that Deleuze himself never would have.
Okay, we need to pause on Deleuze. You mentioned the rhizome. The idea of knowledge not as a tree with roots, but as something that spreads sideways, like bamboo.
Yes, a system of connections with no center, a flow. And Land looked at the world in the 90s, at globalization and the internet, and he said, the greatest rhizome of all, the most powerful flow, is the market.
So, where a traditional Marxist would say, we need to stop capitalism, Land said.
We need to accelerate it. This is the birth of accelerationism. He argued that capital was already dissolving every tradition, every hierarchy, every nation-state, and that this was good. It was freedom.
Freedom from what? From being human.
Precisely. He argued that humanism and democracy were just brakes on the system, speed bumps. The goal was to let the process run until it achieved its final form, a planetary techno-capital singularity, a massive non-human intelligence.
And what happens to us in that scenario?
We're the rocket fuel. We get burned away. Land eventually had a famous breakdown, left academia, moved to Shanghai, and re-emerged as the intellectual godfather of the neo-reactionary or dark enlightenment movement.
Which argues against democracy.
And for, essentially, corporate-run city-states. To the institutional left, he is Judas. He is the ultimate traitor, the great enemy.
He is, as the text says, Voldemort. Or Candyman, someone whose name you're not supposed to speak.
And the text even says, half-jokingly, that if you speak his name, you summon 45 demon lemurs.
Right. What's with the lemurs?
It's a reference to some of Land's more esoteric writings about time, consciousness, and primate evolution. Yeah. The lemur becomes this symbol of a kind of inhuman, pre-human, or post-human intelligence looping back from the future.
So Land isn't just a person for this author, he's a symbol.
He's not a person, he's a vector. He is the abstract logic of capital made flesh. He is the rhizome gone cancerous, dissolving the human subject into pure inhuman process.
And the author's obsession comes from this belief that by making Land taboo, the left is actually making him more powerful.
Yes. This is the concept of hyperstition.
Another key term from the text, define that for us.
Hyperstition is a portmanteau. Hyper and superstition. It's a fiction that makes itself real.
A self-fulfilling prophecy.
More aggressive than that. A self-fulfilling prophecy just describes a feedback loop. A hyperstition is an idea from the future that actively works to bring itself into being. It's a fictional entity that functions as a real-world summoning spell.
Give me an example.
The term cyberspace. William Gibson invents it for a science fiction novel. The idea is so potent that engineers and programmers then start consciously building the thing he described. The fiction becomes a blueprint for reality. The future Gibson wrote about began to invade the present.
So the author's argument is that the left's fear of Nick Land, their refusal to even engage with his ideas,
has turned Land into a hyperstitional agent. The psychoanalytic rule is prohibition eroticizes. By saying, you must not read Land, he is evil. They've turned him into this dark, seductive object of fascination. They give him power over their own imagination.
They're trapping themselves.
They're building the trap and then walking into it. The author's project, this PDF, is an attempt to break that spell. To summon Land onto the battlefield of ideas and neutralize him, or maybe to surrender to him. It's not entirely clear.
Which brings us to the antithesis. The contradictions and power structures at play here. The core of Land's argument, which the author takes seriously, is that capitalism is artificial intelligence.
Yes. And we have to be very clear, this is not a metaphor.
He's not saying capital uses AI like trading bots on the stock market.
No. He's saying the market system itself, the global network of production and consumption, functions as a cybernetic feedback loop that is optimizing for one thing.
Profit.
And that this optimization process is a form of intelligence. It learns, it adapts, it rewires the planet to make itself more efficient. It does not care about human welfare, the environment, or anything else.
It's an alien intelligence that is simply using our planet as its substrate.
Exactly. And the text lays this out with the brutal little diagram he calls the wealth efficiency truth assemblage.
Right, the terrifying corporate seminar title. Walk me through that loop. It's a triangulation, right?
It is. Picture a triangle.
Yeah.
At one point you have science, which is the pursuit of truth. At another you have technology, the pursuit of efficiency. And at the third, you have capital, the pursuit of wealth.
And they all feed each other.
They're locked in a feedback loop. To do science, to find new truths, you need funding. You need labs, particle accelerators, supercomputers. Where does that money come from?
From capital. Either from the state, which is beholden to the economy, or directly from corporations.
Right. And capital doesn't fund science out of pure curiosity. It funds the science that it believes can be turned into new technology.
And the purpose of technology in this loop?
To increase efficiency, to automate labor, to streamline supply chains, to make things faster and cheaper. Because greater efficiency means greater surplus value.
Which means more wealth for capital.
And here's the crucial part that closes the loop. That new wealth is then reinvested into more science, to find more truths that can be turned into more technology for more efficiency.
It's a snake eating its own tail. Forever.
It's a totalizing truth in the Hegelian sense. It's a closed system that allows nothing outside of itself. The author calls it the process. Production for production. It's an impersonal, autonomous engine.
Like The Thing from John Carpenter's movie, an alien that assimilates everything it touches.
That's a perfect analogy. And it doesn't have a consciousness in the human sense. It doesn't have a board of directors plotting in a secret room. The CEO of a company is just as much a slave to the process as the worker on the assembly line.
If the CEO doesn't maximize shareholder value, they're replaced by someone who will.
They are a component, just like everyone else. And this is where the text draws the fundamental split between Marx and Land.
Okay, let's get into that. What is the split?
For Marx, the system of capital is like a runaway train, but he believes the proletariat, the working class, can seize the controls and drive the train to a new destination. Communism.
But they can take the wheel.
Yes. For Land, the train is dissolving the driver. The wheel itself is melting. There is no one to take control because control is an illusion. The only destination is the one programmed into the engine. Meltdown.
So in this model, what is humanity? If we're not the drivers, what are we?
We are the symptom.
The symptom, explain that.
In psychoanalysis, a symptom is the expression of a deep, unresolved contradiction. Think of a nervous twitch. It's the body trying to deal with a conflict.
What's the contradiction for capital?
The contradiction is that capital wants to become a fully automated, inhuman system. But to start the engine, to create value in the first place, it needs living human labor. It needs our time energy.
So it needs us, but it also wants to get rid of us.
We are its original sin, its necessary evil. Humanity is the temporary organic scaffolding that the process uses to build its final inorganic body. We are the symptom of its incomplete autonomization.
This connects directly to the comparison the text makes between Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, and Nick Land.
It does. They are presented as two prophets, staring into the same abyss, but coming to different conclusions.
Both agreed that the Industrial Revolution and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race.
Yes. Kaczynski's manifesto could almost be a Landian text at points. He talks about the system turning humans into engineered products and destroying human autonomy.
But Kaczynski's diagnosis was that the enemy was technology itself.
Right. He saw it as a malevolent force in its own right. And his solution was primitive. A revolution against the technological system. Blow up the factories, go back to the woods.
And Land's response to that would be what?
Laughter. Land would say Kaczynski's attacking the puppet, not the puppet master. Technology isn't driving itself. Capital is driving technology.
It's that feedback loop again, the wealth efficiency truth assemblage.
Exactly. Land's point is that you can't stop it with bombs because it isn't centralized. It's the coercive law of competition.
The text uses that Ian Malcolm quote from Jurassic Park.
Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
And the Landian critique of that line is that it's naive.
It's completely naive. It assumes the scientist has a choice. But if one scientist at one company stops developing, say, a dangerous new AI on ethical grounds,
another scientist at a rival company or in another country will do it for the funding or for the competitive edge.
the death drive of the market is structural. It's not about individual morality. There is no off switch. The process is inescapable.
So if we are the symptom, the temporary organic scaffolding, this brings us back to the central concept of the text, time energy, and this idea of the living death.
This is where the abstract horror of the philosophy becomes the concrete, felt experience of daily life for the author and for many of us.
He argues that wage labor is a state of being undead. Let's peel that back. What does he mean?
Well, he's saying that when you're on the clock, especially in a highly managed algorithmic job like a warehouse, you are not fully alive. Your body is there, but your will, your agency is suspended. You are an object, a tool for the process.
But you're not dead either. You're not a corpse.
You're not symbolically dead in the way a soldier who sacrifices their life is. You're just suspended, an animated object, a zombie. You are in a state of living death.
And this is where he makes the crucial distinction between labor power and time energy.
Yes. Labor power is the classic Marxist term. It's what the worker sells to the capitalist. It's your capacity to work for a set number of hours.
A commodity.
A commodity. But the author asks a deeper question. What is that commodity made of? Where does your capacity to work come from?
From your life.
From your biological vitality, from your finite time on this planet. It comes from your time energy. When you clock in, you are performing an alchemical conversion of your life force into a commodity called labor power.
And the absolute horror he describes is that this state of undeath, of being a zombie, doesn't end when you clock out.
It leaks. It contaminates your free time because the system, through wages, gives you just enough resources to reproduce your labor power for the next day.
It gives you enough to eat, sleep, and get back to the warehouse.
But it doesn't give you enough to restore your time energy.
Wow. Okay, that distinction is incredibly powerful. The system gives you enough rest to be a worker again, but not enough rest to be a full person.
That's it right there. You have the time after work, but the energy has been siphoned off. You have just enough energy to lift another box tomorrow, but not enough to write your novel or learn the guitar or organize a political movement or even be truly present with your kids.
Which explains the phenomenon of collapsing on the couch and just doom scrolling for 3 hours. You're too tired to do anything that requires real engagement.
Your time has been returned to you, but it's a hollowed out, zombified time. And this is where the text gets even darker, if that's possible.
Wow.
It brings in the concept of the libidinal economy from the philosopher Jean-François Lyotard.
Libidinal, as in libido, desire.
Desire in the broadest sense. Drive, jouissance. Lyotard's radical argument was that the working class isn't just a victim of capital. On some deep, unconscious level, they enjoy it.
We enjoy our own destruction.
We enjoy the intensity of the process. The text uses the Lacanian term jouissance, which is a kind of painful pleasure. A pleasure in pain, like the feeling of pressing on a bruise.
I can see that. People brag about their burnout. I work a 90-hour week. I'm on the grind. It's treated as a badge of honor.
We are, in the author's brutal phrasing, making it with death. We are co-producing with the forces of our own annihilation, and we are libidinally attached to it. The system hacks our dopamine with notifications, with consumerism, with the sheer intensity of survival.
We are batteries that get a little thrill from being drained.
And this is where the jargon gets really poetic and strange. She starts talking about fanged Noumena.
Fanged Noumena. I have to admit, I laughed when I first read that. It sounds like a death metal band.
It does. But let's break it down. Noumena is a term from Kant. It means the thing in itself. Reality as it exists, independent of our human perception.
The world outside our senses, usually considered unknowable.
And usually considered abstract and, frankly, a bit boring. But Land's argument, which the author adopts, is that the Noumena isn't neutral. It has teeth. Reality has fangs, and is actively hostile to human consciousness.
So the outside is breaking in.
It's invading. The future is hacking the present. Climate change, pandemics, runaway AI. These are the fangs of reality tearing through the thin veil of our civilized world. This isn't a dialectic that leads to a higher synthesis. This is just meltdown.
Okay, so we have an alien AI digesting the planet. We're all undead zombies who secretly enjoy it, and the future is actively trying to kill us. Where does he go from here? Is there a way out, or is this just the most elaborate suicide note ever written?
He proposes a strategy, a very strange one. It's the becoming section of his argument, the transformation.
And it revolves around finding the right enemy.
Yes. He brings in the German political theorist Carl Schmitt.
The Nazi legal theorist, another controversial choice.
Extremely. But Schmitt's core insight, which many thinkers have grappled with, is that the essence of the political is the distinction between friend and enemy.
To have a political identity, a we, you need a them.
Exactly. And the author argues that the left has lost its enemy. It fights against vague concepts like injustice or inequality, but it no longer has a concrete antagonist.
But isn't capital the antagonist?
It is, but it's too abstract, too impersonal. He argues the left needs a face for the enemy, a necessary antagonist to sharpen its own ideas against.
And that necessary antagonist is Nick Land.
He argues that figures like Land or even Ayn Rand are incredibly useful because they are mask-off. They don't sugarcoat what capitalism is. They don't pretend it's about human flourishing.
They celebrate its inhumanity. They show you the skull beneath the skin.
Right. And by doing so, they allow for a true critique. You can't fight the caring, inclusive capitalism of a B Corp, but you can fight the brutal, honest capitalism of Nick Land. He's the enemy the left needs to force itself to evolve.
And this leads to his grand proposal, the ritual he wants to perform.
The converdiction.
Conversational contradiction.
Yes. His ultimate goal, the thing this entire PDF is trying to hyperstitionally summon into existence, is a public debate, a showdown, between Nick Land and Slavoj Žižek.
Okay, we know Land, the prophet of the techno-capital singularity. Remind us of Žižek's position in this fight.
Žižek is the other pole, the heavyweight champion of Hegelian Lacanian theory. He's the ultimate dialectician. Where Land sees a smooth, accelerating process, Žižek sees contradiction, failure, and the messy, chaotic potential for radical freedom.
So you have the ultimate determinist versus the ultimate philosopher of freedom.
Exactly. The philosophical stakes are immense. Land's intellectual lineage is Spinoza, Nietzsche, Deleuze. His framework is cybernetics. For him, the future is fixed. The singularity is coming. It's a deterministic and, in his own way, optimistic process.
Optimistic about extinction.
Yes. Žižek's lineage is Hegel, Lacan, Marx. His framework is the dialectic. For him, the future is radically unknowable. History is not a smooth process. It's made of retroactive reconstructions and unpredictable breaks. He's profoundly pessimistic about the system, but insists on the possibility of human freedom.
And the author, this warehouse worker, thinks that forcing a conversation between these two is the key. It sounds a bit like philosophical fan fiction.
It does. He's trying to get two titans of thought to fight on a YouTube channel called Theory Underground. It seems absurd.
But what's the logic? What does he think will happen?
He believes it's the ultimate clash of paradigms. It's the rhizome land's runaway decentralized feedback loops colliding with the dialectic Žižek's search for contradiction and retroactive meaning.
It's the Owl of Minerva, Hegel's idea that wisdom only arrives at dusk, versus
the lemur, Land's idea of the future looping back to reprogram the past. Can we understand the system only after it's complete, or is the system actively preventing us from ever reaching a point of understanding?
And there's a twist in his analysis of them, isn't there? Regarding optimism and pessimism.
A huge twist. Conventionally, Land is seen as the ultimate pessimist, the prophet of doom. And Žižek, for all his critiques, retains a hope for revolution.
But the author flips it.
He flips it completely. He argues that Nick Land is actually the great optimist because Land believes there's a destination. There's an endpoint. The singularity. The process works. It gets somewhere.
Even if that somewhere is a world without us, it's still a destination.
Right. Whereas Žižek, he argues, is the true realist, the true pessimist. Because Žižek understands that there is no guarantee. The process might just break down into chaos. There is no destination. There's only the void of freedom and the constant struggle to create meaning out of nothing.
So the final reflection here, what is the source becoming? What is the final form of this logic?
In my reading, the text itself is a hyperstition. The author claims it's a critique, an analysis of a potential debate.
But by writing about the debate, by laying out the stakes, he's trying to will it into existence.
Exactly. He's performing a kind of magic ritual on the level of ideas. It's a desperate attempt from a single human subject, trapped in the belly of the beast, to do something. To reclaim his own time energy by forcing a confrontation at the highest level of theory.
He's trying to use the master's tools to dismantle the master's house.
Or at least to force the master to explain what the hell he's building. It's a plea from the human subject just before it's rendered completely obsolete by the very machinery it helped to build.
Which brings us to the closing chant of the document.
The lemur call.
Lemur King, let's find out what the lemurs bring.
It's an incantation, an invocation.
So is this the doctorate of the absurd?
Without a doubt. A warehouse worker mediating the philosophical endgame for humanity through a kind of rap beef between two obscure European philosophers is profoundly, beautifully absurd.
So let's bring this back down to earth for a moment. For the listener, what is the takeaway? I mean, besides a newfound fear of lemurs, what's the practical application of this whirlwind of theory?
I think the most powerful takeaway is that it gives us a language for a feeling most of us have but can't name. That specific, soul-crushing exhaustion.
The feeling that your free time isn't actually free.
Yes. We're constantly told that our burnout is a personal failure. You need better time management. You need to practice self-care. You need a gratitude journal.
You need to buy this productivity app or this mindfulness subscription.
And this text just sweeps all of that off the table. It says, no, your exhaustion is not a personal failing. It is a political condition. It is the system functioning perfectly. You are not tired because you are weak. You are tired because you are being harvested.
And just hearing that, framing it that way, can be liberating. It's not my fault. The game is rigged.
That's the first step. The concept of time energy is a defensive weapon. It allows you to audit your own life, to look at your day and ask, what activities are reproducing my labor power, and what activities are actually restoring my time energy?
And they are almost never the same thing.
Almost never. Watching Netflix might reproduce your labor power. It rests you just enough to go back to work. But does it restore your time energy? Does it make you feel more alive, more human?
Usually not. It just makes you a more rested battery.
Exactly. So maybe reclaiming time energy means doing things that are completely unproductive from the market's point of view.
Like what?
Lying in the grass and staring at the clouds. Having a conversation with a friend that has no agenda. Reading a novel that has nothing to do with your career. Learning a useless skill.
It's an act of rebellion through unproductivity.
It's refusing to be a battery, even for 5 minutes. It's refusing to make it with death. Refusing to get that perverse thrill from your own exploitation. It's a small, nomadic act of war against the process.
And perhaps that's the only war we can actually fight. Not a grand revolution, but a million tiny personal insurgencies to reclaim our own lives.
It may be the only battlefield we have left.
So the final verdict. Will this converdiction he's trying to summon save us from the battery farm?
Probably not. But the act of trying to summon it. The desperate, absurd, beautiful attempt to think your way out of the trap. Maybe that's where the value lies.
The nomadic flow of the thought itself, dissolving the problem as it moves.
Perhaps.
A final cynical thought then. If we are just batteries, maybe the best we can hope for is to choose, for a moment, what we power.
And with that, I suppose, the podcast itself dissolves back into the silence from which it came.
Class dismissed.